Hey everyone, this is Saeed. Welcome to Messy Growth. Most CEOs either found the companies or parachute in from outside with a fancy resume. Our guest today, Margaret Sikora, did neither. She started at Woodpecker in 2017 as a junior customer success specialist, answering support tickets, dealing with customers. 8 years later, well, she's the CEO. The path, pretty simple. Junior CS to customer success officer, to head of support, to interim manager, to head of product, to COO, and finally CEO. She didn't skip any steps. She lived every part of the business. And she got a PhD in law, by the way, somewhere in between, because apparently that wasn't hard enough already. Here's what different. She did it all at the same company. No job hopping every 18 months. She kept proving she could do the next thing, and Woodpecker kept promoting her. So today we're talking about how you go from support tickets to CEO, to managing people who used to be your peers, and what actually changes when the title becomes yours. Margaret, thanks for sitting down with me.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Absolutely, perfect. Margaret, talk to me a little bit about this. You have a fascinating story, and first of all, thank you so much for inviting us here to your office. It's a beautiful office. I really like it, and your studio is really perfect. Talk to me about your story. How do you go from support person all the way to customer success, CEOs, manager, into CEO? What does that journey look like?
That was a crazy ride. So initially I didn't plan it. Usually you don't plan stuff like this, but I was studying law and I tried to find a place I fit in. That was pretty fast when I figured I won't be a lawyer, like for my job and for career and stuff. So accidentally I found Woodpecker recruiting for customer support. And I absolutely love the niche. Like B2B sales is so entrepreneurial. It's absolutely fascinating. So that was very my thing to get engaged into the process. And I really like the company, like the spirit, the culture and, building something from scratch. Because when I joined, there was like 5 people. So that was pretty early stage. And then it was just progressing, new opportunities, new places where the company needed support. So that was kind of organic growth, I would say.
Okay, perfect. And you're originally from Wrocław, by the way?
No, I'm from a small village next to Łódź, so central Poland.
Oh, wow. So you're closer to us in Warsaw. That's perfect. So you started in customer success, answering support tickets. Most CS people stay in CS forever, or they burn out. That's naturally one of the 2 paths they take. What did you do differently that made leadership think she could run product, not just happy customers?
So that was interesting part, because when we started our support story together with Woodpecker, the assets that we had, like the processes, were extremely limited. Sure. So, that was basically working with our CTO, Maciej, and learning how to, help the customers efficiently. So it kind of entailed learning tech. And then I discovered I absolutely love it. Like the technology was one of the biggest parts of why I decided to stay in a company and in a business, because building up on understanding how the technology actually works is, I think, different level of being engaged in a company and understanding both its opportunities and limits. So I started to understand our product a bit better, but at the same time, when you need to help people, because why people from customer support or success tend to burn out, because in my opinion, they don't feel like they can impact the environment. You're simply taking all the mess from the customers that is out there, but you can't change anything. You're not coding it yourself. You're not planning the roadmap. So at that point, I understood, okay, if that company will succeed in the future, we need to be very close to our customers. And that's kind of very organic way to go to product, just because if you don't do product for your customers, for whom you're doing the product, it shouldn't be mirroring your aspirations. It should be useful for someone, especially for B2B. So that was kind of the shift. And I really enjoyed the part of being in the product team.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, your story is pretty fascinating in the sense that we don't see that in the world quite often. I think the closest it's gotten, it's to the Nike CEO that rose through the ranks, and you've done the same exact thing, which is fantastic, specifically for Poland. We don't see a lot of that. So that kind of gives me hope. When you start from the bottom, you can get all the way to the top, literally to the highest title there is. I'm curious, so you've dealt with customer support, product. Do you feel like the fact that you have worked with these different departments, it gives you a perspective that most CEOs don't have, because they're not in the trenches? Sure, you could tackle tickets for a day or 2. You could talk to customers, but that's not the same as actually doing it day in and day out. Do you think that gives you a skill set that most CEOs don't have?
I'm not sure if, I don't like to compare myself towards other CEOs because every story is unique. But for sure, if you do product for B2B sales, because Woodpecker is purely for B2B sales, right? If you want to sell to salespeople, you don't need to be good at talking,
Oh,
making
really?
amazing offers and stuff like this. You need to deliver value, because salespeople, among all people I worked with, they understand what they need in terms of, I want this to convert. I want more leads. I want more customers. I want to have less work in terms of operations. They don't need amazing sales pitch. Probably like half of my clients can do better sales pitch than I do. I don't go to them to pitch them and say like, hey, best software ever. I can tell them you will convert 10% more. And this is the language they need. And
Sure.
then I can prove it by this and this statistic, but this and this quote. So I would say for this particular niche, being a CEO for a company as Woodpecker from outside of the business is extremely difficult because the niche is very specific. But yeah, on the other hand, I do feel like to some extent or to some level of company size, it's very important in terms of motivation also for the team
Sure.
to see the CEO working along with them. At least for me, it's very difficult to feel motivated by a manager that don't understand my work or never worked along with me, because then how the person could understand what I'm struggling with, help me to optimize or support. Of course, this is biased because this is something that I believe in, and maybe it's not working in some environments, but I feel that's a big part of the whole story.
Right. So, like, we talked about customer success, talked about burning out, the style of leadership. How would people describe your style of leadership?
We would have to ask my team. But I think two features or two things that I'm extremely like attached to is being honest. So if I think something, I can say it. So not being very politically correct in many areas. Because I don't think it will fly far. Like if you don't believe what you're saying, people will figure it out and they will just stop believing you. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense. And the other one is just trying to be as fair. Just, when it's the saying that in the morning you want to look in the mirror and be able to look at yourself because you believe in what you're doing. And it's like from a standard of, I don't know, moral, ethical, but also like doing what you believe in. I would say those are two things that I believe in and that are very close to me. But also I truly believe, and I know it's not the thing that is very fancy to say right now, but I do believe in hard work. I think that to be able to do things, you need to try many times to be able to get there. So yeah, I'm on the side that if you really want to master some type of skills, you need to repeat and work and try to push every day forward to basically gain the skill. So those are like things that I think really created the path of career that I have.
Is imposter syndrome real at that stage when you've made it all the way to the top?
Of course.
I mean, look at it from the lens of a person that gets all the way from CS into CEO. That's a validation in and of itself, right? That you made it to the highest rank. How does that still affect you? And if so, how do you overcome that?
I look at work in slightly different perspective. I think we have an organization and this is the amount of work that we have. And those are people that are there, including me. And the ideal situation is that those people do this work. I don't care which group of those people is performing this work, including myself. So there's stuff to get done, and we need to get them done to push the company further.
Sure.
And that's it. So the imposter syndrome or, every questioning in the head, it's still there. But usually it's a part of the journey, and you probably have it at different levels, and it doesn't matter at what role you are.
Yeah.
I also don't think that the role validates the skill set that much. It's of course nice to be in a position, and I feel it's appealing to be a CEO, but at the end of the day, it's just a story about if I can help the company to grow and to overcome certain obstacles, not about me being CEO or not being a CEO, because this is like the side effect of the story, not the gist of it.
Yeah. You said it's appealing to be the CEO. What do you mean by that?
Because, it shows some type of a journey, right? So that you were trusted in the process. Because when you start a company, you're organically being, the owner, the founder, and so on and so forth. And when you are stepping into the role of a CEO, it means that you are trusted by the people around you to give you the role, right? To say, okay, we believe that this is not the most hardcore option to trust, in this case, myself to basically lead the company and so on and so forth. So, it comes with some type of validation. But as I said, I don't think about it too much on day-to-day work. I feel like the overall outcome of what we do is the real measurement of a success.
Yeah. I did want to ask you over when I was driving here, one of the things that I was thinking, the transition must have been crazy. I mean, think about it this way, that you're one of the people for a lack of a better way to put it, that you're working in, in the midst of pretty much everyone doing the same task, and now you transition over to become CEO. Does that transition take a long time, or you kind of feel like there is a switch that needs to be flipped on and you're ready to go, or how does that work?
I think you're never 100% ready to go. At least I never reached the point when I was ready, like 100% to any positions that I was at. But, there's like a big factor of people that are around you during the journey. So I'll give you an example. When I stepped into the product team, one of the architects or the engineers in the team was my very good friend, Michał. And basically, he was the person who kind of pushed me to like ask, okay, so maybe I can do the job. And basically, he taught me everything. I knew nothing about running product, because organically, if you're in the support, how exactly you should know how to run product?
Right.
It's not a part of the course to be a customer supporter. So he taught me everything. And even though I was technically like leading the team that he was a part of,
Sure.
he was still the person who taught me a lot about how to do this job, how to manage the product, and so on and so forth. So I think if the culture of the organization is very healthy, you can learn from people regardless of their position in the company. And this is what helped me a lot to basically go through the path that I was, changing positions and kind of switching roles, and also, being friends with someone and then being the superior to the person and stuff like this. Because of course it's difficult, but when you have the environment that supports you, it's doable.
Yeah. Talking about it, about leadership and CEO, what kind of traits you look for people when you're working with them? Is there a particular thing that you're noticing in an interview or when you're talking to them, like, yeah, this is my person that I want to go ahead and hire?
Yeah. So I have some failed stories in trying to define this one, because I really liked, especially at the beginning, I love the idea that I can feel that the person is a good fit. Because that's very comfortable to feel. I like the person, the mindset is there, so that's for sure a good fit. And that was working to some point, but that's also very tricky, because most likely what you're doing, or at least what I was doing, I was trying to find people that were alike.
Sure.
Which leads to a situation that you end up with a team that is extremely homogeneous. You have the people that are super similar to each other, which means that at some point they will not have this just, triggers. They will not have this drive to, basically bring different types of mindset and skill sets in one place. So right now I'm trying to avoid a situation that I'm searching for people that are alike or I agree with. Of course, it's always a good idea not to hate each other. When you employ someone, try to not employ someone who is like triggering you extremely in a negative way. But I'm trying not to rely on this like thing that I feel that that's a cool person. I'm trying to rely on more what type of skills I need from that person, and always primarily, do I understand what the person should bring to the company? So before employing anyone, the main question is, do I understand what type of KPIs and what type of deliveries the person should bring to the company? Because otherwise I can have the best players here, but I can burn their careers just by the fact that the expectations won't be there. So I still try to lead, for example, employment process a bit by this feeling, if that's a good idea, but also put some KPIs and factors that are more objective, like competences to tick, and just, the definition of what the person should bring up to the company.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were the head of product, I want to switch gears a little bit here. I'm pretty sure you got a lot of requests from customers about, hey, you should build certain features, certain feature. And a lot of times, actually, I've dealt with it as well, that the complaints can be pretty angry for the most part, or annoying when you're pushing that out to the head of product all the time. Was there a time when you got a feature that kind of like helped Woodpecker become a catalyst in a certain way, or push it to become a product that it is today?
I think that every development around deliverability, because that's like a heavy lifting for cold emailing. So every feature that helps you to deliver emails without you understanding how they get delivered, that's like the magic sauce. So we invested heavily at some point to build the sending engine in a way that you as a user don't have to understand what's happening there. But ultimately, your ratio of delivered messages is higher than if you would use any competitor. And also working closely with feedback from agencies. Like we were the first software in our category that offered agency panel, so that you can manage multiple customers with like full separation of databases. So that was also like, listening to how our customers actually work with their customers and then implementing that in the product.
Okay, that's fascinating. So we've talked about it early on. You've worn a lot of hats, customer support, customer success, management, CEO. Was there a time where you kind of felt like in the transition that it's hard for me to let go certain traits or certain things? If so, how do you tackle that? Because like I'm a VP of sales, you put me in customer success, it would be hard for me to just shut that muscle off. That takes a lot of time and a lot of practice.
Usually when you see people that are better than you in their positions, it becomes easier to give it. And every time, I think I'm pretty sentimental in terms of job positions. So when I was leaving support, I was very sad. I really loved supporting. Not exactly sure why, but that was like a place where I feel I fit in. And then the same was with product. So that was difficult for me to move away from product team just because I worked with those people very closely. So yeah, basically, if you either have a team that is very, I would say, self-sustainable or independent, or a leader that you can trust, it becomes easier because you understand that if you're wearing 5 hats, in none of these hats you're performing as good as the person who's focusing just on one job. That's the truth. And this is not the question of a skill set. That's just, distraction aspect and context switching and stuff like this. So I was very lucky with people in the team and leaders and just, managers who were stepping into the areas that I was previously working with. And that helped a lot. But it's always a bit just, sad and leaving something behind.
All right, absolutely. So you went from COO to CEO. You kind of felt like that at that level of transition, it was just merely about changing titles and the job was the same, or you kind of the day-to-day changed quite a lot?
The day-to-day changed quite a lot. So definitely, like, while stepping into the role of a CEO, there was way much more PR and just, external communication. Also, I don't know, media content, presence on LinkedIn. Those are stuff that I haven't done in the past. So definitely there is like the whole new angle, and also thinking from a different level, because like when you're a manager, regardless of a level, your obligation, or at least how I understood my role, is to bring up the solutions for the problems that your superior can't come up with, because that's basically like why you're there. And when you're the CEO, you don't have like anyone to appeal to. Right. I can just complain to myself, but that's not very efficient usually. So it changes the optic. Like you don't have much people to rely on in terms of like, hey, please solve it for me. And definitely you need to understand that when you're stepping into C-level role or the CEO role, that you need to let people do stuff differently than you do them, because that's kind of like the part of being a manager. And at that level, you will not have time to manage many processes or be in operations. So just like getting used to that, you see things or processes going differently than if you would be in charge, but you have to allow it and you have to understand how this fits into the whole organization.
You said there's nobody above you, which is a fact that you don't answer to anyone when you're the CEO. Is it true to say it's very lonely at the top? If so, how do you navigate that? Like, who do you go to use, let's say, a soundboard for yourself?
Having good C-level and good board to talk to. So I have like wonderful, sparring partners when I'm going too deep into my thoughts or something, and I need to talk with someone to just basically discuss the ideas. I have amazing people like Adam, Matthew, or George who are always there to just talk through stuff. But basically it's kind of like accepting that role comes with responsibility, and you don't delegate responsibility. So like all failures are mine, or wins are for the team.
Buck stops with you.
That's just a part of the story. So you need to accept it. And I think with every job career, the important factor is that it's not the story about you personally. It's the story of like career path, place you are at, and so on and so forth. So don't take it too personally. Because that can lead to burnout and, being very stressed about the position or stuff like this, which is very human, but brings no results. So it's better to skip that part.
Yeah. You said it yourself, like to get from where you were to get to becoming a CEO, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of dead bodies that you have to leave on the way. You talked about burnout. Have you ever felt burnt out? Like, how do you tackle that?
That's a difficult question, because of course we have ups and downs, and I do have those, but I think I'm not even close to being burned out, and I'm not sure if that's healthy at that point.
What do you have in your water? Like, can you share it with all of us?
I think it's just balancing your life. So I look at it from a perspective of investment. My energy is needed to run the company and to help it to push forward, right? So I need to organize for myself the environment that allows me to generate this energy day to day. And that's my responsibility to figure what it is. Either it's running, climbing, doing yoga, traveling, no one cares. It's
Yeah.
just like the part of the job. If you're taking up the job like to be a leader, you're not there to complain that you're tired. You need to figure like with yourself what will help you to drive or quit. That's always an option. Because like you can't push or you shouldn't stretch your limits as a human being too much, because that
Sure.
becomes unhealthy and stuff like this. So when I was deciding to become a CEO, I was fully aware that that will be exhausting and that I need to figure mechanisms that will help me to survive as a, healthy, sane human being,
Sure,
because that's kind of responsibility to the organization. And yeah, I do exercise a lot. I travel a lot. I love cold places. So I balance my
Cold
work.
places?
Cold, absolutely. I hate warm. That's funny that we
You're
do
not
cold
Polish, are you?
emailing software. I travel a lot to Svalbard, to Greenland, to anywhere that is like minus 30 degrees is just my thing.
You heard it here, folks. Goddamn. So I have to ask this because upon doing research before meeting you, and this is fascinating and it blew my mind. You got a PhD in law.
Yes.
While working at Woodpecker full time, by the way, going from CS to head of product to COO. That's insane. Like, why did you do that to yourself? Do you not sleep? What's the secret sauce here?
Sleeping is for weak people.
Oh my lord! Don't listen to that.
Just kidding. I'm not sure why I did it to myself. At some point I woke up and I was like, hey, that would be cool to have PhD. And
Just you woke up and you thought, huh, why not? Let's just do a PhD, like random people think, right? Yeah.
when I was studying, I kind of felt like when you have PhD in law, you need to be so smart and, like, that's amazing. And then I did PhD and was like, I want to complain somewhere. I feel the same like without it. Like,
Welcome to
give
the
me
club.
back my 4 years. So yeah, it was just like probably I tried to prove something to myself that I can do the heavy lifting of getting a degree. It didn't change much in my life.
Oh, really? So it did not help you in any way, shape, or form when it comes to running Woodpecker?
Well, sometimes I can answer like question like, hey, so how did you do a PhD in law? But objectively, no, I don't think that's a way to master any skill aside from writing a long thesis. That's the only thing I mastered. But
No chat GPT.
there was no chat GPT at that point, or it was just, at the level where you can't use it too much. Yeah, but I mean, that sounds and looks nice from the external. From the internal, I don't feel like it gave me anything aside from like prestige, which is a bit of a fake concept, but still, it sounds cool to have PhD in law. But objectively, I didn't gain any new skill set from that.
Yeah.
And overall, I do believe that to be a good lawyer, you need to be practitioner. This is from where you take the skill set. So yeah, but that was fun. I mean,
Fun, right? Just doing a PhD, random fun, right? For the most part. Yeah, I was reviewing it. It was, I think we spoke on LinkedIn about it, that it was in data processing, a very niche. So it was just, I thought it was just intellectual curiosity, or you've kind of felt like that it will help you. But yeah, that makes total sense. It would be unfair to not talk about cold email. I've had my career in sales. You run a company that's propagated on cold email. So Woodpecker is a cold emailing platform in a market where there's tons of competitors like Lemlist, Smart Lead Instantly, like there's 50 others. What's Woodpecker's unfair advantage that kind of like lets you get ahead of the pack?
So high level, we are multi-channel now because we do email plus LinkedIn, which limits the amount of competitors that we have. And the second one, Woodpecker is built with safety high in the standards. So simply the system is doing the heavy lifting for you. So you won't hurt your deliverability, your processes, your domains, and everything that is out there. So we, for example, have free built-in email validation, which you don't have to pay extra for. And we are the only software that offers that. We have full separation of databases for agency clients. So you can be sure that you're managing this data, not any other data that you have uploaded to the system. And right now, we also manage multi-channel campaigns with LinkedIn and email, both natively from the interface of our application. So there are a few things that makes us different from the competitors, but the best way is always to test.
Yeah. What do you say to people who say cold emailing is dead? Like in 2025, you shouldn't really be sending out cold emails. Gmail's got spam filters, Outlook's got X, and so on and so forth. What do you say to folks like that?
I mean, yeah, we think about doing a yearly event of that cold emailing. Out of that is the same like SEO is dead, paid ads are dead, everything is dead. Channel is dead if you don't know how to use it. and channels overall are not good and bad. It's the same with cold calling versus paid ads versus trade shows. If you know how to monetize the channel is good enough for you. If you don't know, you have two choices: complain or learn how to use it, and that's the decision on the end of the person who's complaining.
Yeah, 100%. As a CEO, I assume you have to make a lot of decisions that piss people off. You have to kill features, lay people off, say no to customers. Was there a time where you had to make a decision, let's just say your hardest decision as a CEO? How did you know it was the right call, and even though that it sucked?
Yeah, so we had few decisions like this, including we decided to withdraw from some products that we had. So simply, there was no easy path to break through from for the product, and we decided just to shut it down or not develop it further in a way that we used to. And it's always some type of disappointment on the side of people who place some work out there and try to develop it and grow. But it's overall trying to build a story or the culture for a company that is open to do mistakes, and then just move forward from the mistakes. Because every successful company in the world, when we look at big companies, they have graveyards of ideas that they try to do and then withdraw. That's a very natural process. And it's never about the person who figured the idea or who pushed the idea further. This is not a story about people who were engaged in the project. That's just a business decision. And that's very important, not to internalize the projects as, my project. There are no my projects, your projects. There are just projects that we do as a company. And that's always possible that we will move away from those projects.
Yeah, 100%. I think I'm always curious about it. One of the advantages of being a market maker or having a big share of customers is that you get to decide where the market goes or what exactly you end up developing. Is there a process or a ritual, so to speak, that you follow where you decide, okay, this is where it should be headed? Because that requires a lot of creativity and being analytical. Is there something like that?
So for sure, we had this, for example, with custom tracking domains. That was one of the features that I think were first to bring up to the market. So that you should basically, again, around deliverability, use all safety measures available to have it. And then, also, I think the decision in terms of shaping the market is not doing certain stuff, because that's a big part of how you create your product. So I remember there were a time when, that was very kind of fashionable to send cold emails with pictures, and there was person holding a cup, and then on the cup there was your name, which personally I always found a bit intrusive, but that was the moment. And there was the idea, hey, let's do it in product. Let's have the editor for pictures. And I was like, no. It's just like a fashion for 2 months or so, and then everyone will move away. Fad. So not doing things that are shiny for a month or two is also a decision to build a product.
Yeah. If you're not the CEO, what are you doing?
I hike a lot. I travel a lot to cold places. I love mountains. I'm climbing, not very successful at it, but I really love it. So, there are a lot of stuffs, usually outdoor, because when you spend most of your time with people, with technology, you just need to reset.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something about being out there on LinkedIn. Is that the future? CEOs, leaders, C-level execs just being out there producing content and essentially marketing the company in a lot of ways? Or do you kind of feel like that's just something that works for you?
I think for a big portion of the market, that's the future. Because especially for B2B products, that's a tendency that they see among our customers, that they want to be in touch. They want to get some type of relation with the person who's running the company.
Sure.
When their business depend on it. So I'll give you a very simple example. For lead generation agencies, usually they rely with their business on Woodpecker. When you do lead generation, that's 90% of your tech
work,
cost, right? So you want to know the person who stands behind the business because you want to trust the person. How you can trust someone that you don't know? So I think, overall thought leadership and being present on LinkedIn is something that helps to grow business and also to get direct feedback from your most valuable customers.
Is there any cringe moment on LinkedIn where you go, God damn, not that type of post, please?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it happens. What type of activity like hiking, snorkeling, diving taught me about B2B sales? Nothing. They're not comparable. There are two different activities, and we may try to create analogy, but no.
Okay, got it. So my daughter going to ballets does not teach me anything about B2B SaaS. That's good to know. Rewinding a little bit, if you could go back to, say, 2017, when you were a junior CS specialist answering support tickets, what's one piece of advice you'd give yourself about building a career in SaaS?
Try to bring value to the organization you're at. So it's not about planning only your way, but it's also about planning the way for the organization, because you can't be successful in an organization that is not successful. That will not lead you anywhere. So try to look at it from a perspective, what you can bring to the table and how it fits to the needs of organization. So I know it sounds cheap, but it's not only the story about yourself. It's a story about your environment, and can you contribute to that? Because if not, maybe that's not the best place for you, and that's possible. But if you feel you can contribute to the environment, you can't focus only on yourself, because at the end, you're running an organization, or you're being in an organization.
Yeah, yeah. When you made it to the CEO, I'm curious, did you go to Christmas dinner with the flex that I'm CEO now? Was that something a part of your life, or you went to the mirror and said, yeah, I did it? Or you're more like, no, it's just humbling, more of an experience?
I'm still waiting for that moment with the mirror, but it's not there yet.
Oh, so you're not like I think it was Mel Robbins that said you high five yourself on the mirror when you reach the top of the ladder.
No,
Okay.
probably that's a bit too much for me.
I get it. If somebody's here listening and they're wondering, hey, I want to join this company, the mission seems pretty exciting for me, it's very passionate, I want to work with this group of people, is there a certain unique way in which they could apply that would make them stand out from the pack?
I would say always writing something personal, like why you feel you fit in, is this factor. Because, we all have CVs, experience, and stuff like this. But there is always this human factor of giving, this 10 minutes of your time to write something that is interesting for the other side. It's something that, for example, for myself, looks very convincing. Because at the end of the day, it's about being engaged and, trying and being present and trying to bring the success. So, yeah, I think this all small gestures is what matters.
Yeah. When you look at LLMs, and I think like AI and LLMs really have changed the game, have made people change a lot of their playbooks. A lot of the playbooks have actually been thrown out. How do you stand out in the age of LLMs where everybody can create content, anybody can mimic X certain expression? Like how do you do that? Is there a particular way? Is there a formula that you use?
I think there is one rule that is very important with that. So LLMs basically elevate everything, good and bad stuff. So if you try to sell meat to a vegan restaurant, you won't succeed regardless of the amount of AI that we will put on the top of that, because the offer is ridiculously stupid. And the same works with every angle of using AI. If you don't understand how you can participate in LinkedIn posting, sending cold email campaign, doing your content, you name it, you will not succeed just because you have LLMs. That's a tool, and you still can use it in a very bad way, meaning bad, meaning not efficient. So I think LLMs actually expose people who are not there yet with their ideas to be very visible, and also that usually lead to no conversion, no success, and stuff like this. So yeah.
Yeah. Is there a certain part of your job that you don't like that much? Let's give you an example. My wife, she runs a patisserie. She loves the baking side of it because it exposes a lot of her creativity, but she dislikes the business side of things where you have to pay taxes, do the Zeus, file all the documents, talk to the accountant, so on and so forth. Is there something or like a dark side of the moon for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like all formal aspects of being publicly noted, when we have to do like reporting for like quarter, half a year, and you like read hundreds of pages of content, which basically just, summarize the work. It's very formal. I can't say I get very excited about that, but yeah, it's just a tiny portion of the whole story.
Okay. And what's the most exciting part of your day?
I think seeing people doing their job better every day, just because you give them the environment that allows them to do so. Like, the small initiatives that change stuff. Like every time I see new creative initiative on marketing side, or cool idea on a product feature, or just, this tiny elements that, that comes from the environment that people create among each other. And that's amazing to see, because then you understand that at some point your help is not that much needed, because you have created something that is sustainable on its own. And of course, communication with customers. I love working with our customers. Those are amazing people, very interesting stories. So I do like to go out and meet with them and just, spend time and understand how they see the business, because usually they can bring up something that is very unique or very new, or something that they don't think about on a daily basis. So I'm in pretty good touch with a big portion of our customers.
Yeah, I agree. So you guys have a beautiful office. I don't see any ping pong tables, which is a plus, 100%. Do you feel like companies that don't invest in this, because this is an investment at the end of the day. You're paying rent, you're obviously paying for everybody's upkeep, water, so on and so forth, utilities. Do you feel like that is a good investment? Because I've recently read a post on LinkedIn and it went viral, so to speak, where the person was arguing that you could just save that money, get everybody to work remotely from anywhere. You could tap into a bigger talent pool, and still maintain some sort of a semblance of a culture. Are you against that, for it? Are you more for the hybrid approach? What is it that works for you in the Woodpecker fashion?
So overall, I'm for a hybrid approach, but in terms of example, I'm the most creative on the meetings when we sit in the same room discussing something that we'll do, or some like crazy idea or something just, super new to what we do. On day-to-day work, I don't have to be here and I don't have to see people here just to know that they work, that they deliver and stuff like this. But there are these elements when the unity of being in one place, at least from my perspective, is changing how you operate. And that's probably the question of a skill set. Maybe I'm not the person who can organize it online. But from my perspective, that changes a lot. And for example, right now we are running pretty exciting projects with different LLMs and vibe coding. And the team is meeting here in the office. The devs that are responsible for that, they chose to come to the office every Wednesday and brainstorm it and push it forward with their idea, the energy that they create physically being in here. So we keep office because I see this tendency among people that they need to meet in person from time to time. But of course, that's just a matter of how you run the organization, and that's not like evergreen for all organizations out there. I definitely wouldn't come back to like 100% in the office because our team is not only in Wrocław, but in different areas of Poland. So, yeah.
Is there one skill set that you feel is critical to have as a CEO?
Understanding that you don't know everything. Being biased that you know everything and your decisions are the best is, like, in my opinion, a horrible place to be at. Not because of being humble, but because when you stop thinking critically about yourself and your skill set, it means that you will be nothing more than you are right now. That's the end of your development path. And that's sad, in my opinion. I wouldn't like to be at my 30s that I'm at the final form of what I could be in my life, right?
Sure.
So understanding that you can do better and you can understand and perform better than you do right now, which equals criticizing your old decision, doubting in it, and trying to find a different way and different approach. That's the way, in my opinion, to go, because it helps you to find just, new resources to expand your skill set or to change or to adjust to the environment. Because it's not like only the story about being a leader in any position is not only about yourself, it's also about your environment.
Sure.
And it's not like you only can grow up to the role, but the environment can grow out of your skill set, your role. So you need to keep up with what's going on out there.
100%. Coming back to the point of Woodpecker, you've been around a while. You're one of the most successful B2B SaaS companies here in Poland. How has the cold email market changed in the last 5 years? Of course, with the introduction of AI and the LLMs. And what do you think kills most cold email tools? Is it competition, deliverability issues like we talked about earlier, or is there something else that folks are not seeing?
I think the tech has changed a lot. So we used to send all vertically. So one mailbox, one domain, and everything was fine. Now we all send horizontally. So a lot of mailboxes, a lot of domains. So the technology has changed. And that's a no-brainer. Like, we are not in a state when you can send like 200 emails a day from one mailbox. That's just not gonna fly. So the people that are struggling right now with cold emailing are probably those ones that kind of missed the moment of a change.
Mm-hmm.
And you really need to adjust to see any results out of it. And the second part of this is the spray and pray approach. So that's sending, millions of emails a month. That's something that we counted it once with one of our big clients, decreased 12 times over the last 4 years or something like this. So simply speaking, and that's a disclaimer, if that works for your business, it's good enough. But statistically speaking, spray and pray is not working anymore. So you need to adjust and find other ways, like micro-segmentation, better targeting, intent signals. It all depends. Those are just the techniques that you can use to basically convert. But overall, it has changed a lot. And you need to understand that if you have a playbook that is 2 years old, probably it's not going to work right now. And we need to accept that that's a constant change.
Are you a 9 to 5 p.m. CEO?
No. Usually I'm a CEO as long as it's needed for the day. But I really like this work, so it's not too intrusive. But yeah.
I bet. Yeah, I mean, naturally, I think like if you're in a C-level role or a CEO, I don't think work actually ever stops. I mean, if folks need to ping you, feel that you have a fiduciary responsibility to respond, even if it's at 11 p.m. or even if you're at a hike somewhere, you have a signal. Your journey, Margaret, is fascinating. I was actually talking to my daughter about this last night, and I was like, take a look at that. I mean, this is possible, and this actually happens in the world. Is there a message you want to leave behind, something to go with your legacy? It was like, not just the person who made it to the CEO, something other than that, something more?
I would say one thing that I wish I would hear earlier is don't take advices from anyone around you. Select people that you allow to advise you very carefully.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like advisors at work. I mean in general. Because if the person that you're listening to is not in a position that you want to be in life, in development, or it's not the type of person that you admire, don't take the advice. Because you'll hear, like all of us will hear a lot of advices and recommendations. And I've heard many times that I'm just burning out my career and I should switch something. And I'm like, okay, listen to the people that are valuable and that you respect and you want to be like, and just keep the rest, because that's your responsibility for life at the end of the day. And the other thing is, I don't think there are shortcuts, or at least if you're not like born a genius, which I wasn't, there are no shortcuts. You need to work your way to get certain skills or resistance or stuff like this. And it sounds a bit like fake it until you make it.
Right.
But on the other hand, that's not a bad thing. We are not born ready for stuff. We gain certain features and certain skills to be in the positions. So until you gain it, you need to somehow, push toward the point where you got it. So I think those are two things. So don't take recommendations or advices from people you don't think like are good enough to advise you. And the second one is, remember that it's very normal to not be ready for something. Usually we're not. If you are very critical or at least self-aware, you'll have doubts. And that means that you are sane and thinking, which is a good quality overall.
Yeah. When is your book coming out?
I wrote my PhD and that's good enough, I think.
All right, cool. I was speaking to Sadek, another fellow of Wrocław resident, and he talked about, following your passion is such crappy advice. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because passion is like with motivation. So motivation or passion or just like big emotions are very tricky, because you have it at one moment, but tomorrow or a day after you don't have it anymore. You don't have this big emotional bump. What you have is routine, is discipline, and is following patterns. And it sounds boring, but that's the truth. I don't think motivation, like these big bumps of emotions, are building success. Day-to-day work is building success. Unless you're like in super lucky circumstances. But I'm not a big fan of driving too much in your life by like huge emotions, because then the emotion is done and you're left with nothing, and you don't have routine. It's like with training, right? You don't go for a run when you want to run, but when you understand that this is a training day.
Yeah. No, this is fascinating. I want to head into our, this has been a fascinating conversation, Margaret. I do want to head into our rapid fire round. It's my favorite one.
Sure.
Quick questions, quick answers. Best advice that you've received, business or personal?
So personal, go and do your training if you don't want to, because you'll thank yourself later.
Yeah, investing in your future. Advice you ignored or wish you had listened to?
So the one that I ignored, so for example, engaging too much in one company is a waste of time, because you can get more money somewhere else.
Wow, that's perfect. Actually, I'm going to write that down. What would you tell yourself or your younger self, say 7 or 10 years ago?
Focus less on what people think about whatever you do, because you don't think about these people on a daily basis. So just, that's a waste of time.
How do people remove that thing, though? I mean, I kind of feel like that a lot of what we do, and especially I kind of feel like that social media enhances that so much that you want to show and present yourself as the perfect being. Like, how do you turn that switch off? That's not something that people have built in. They're constantly thinking about, well, how do I look? How do people perceive me? Is that okay? Is this picture okay?
It's the same like with, for example, doing push-ups. I couldn't do push-ups and now I can do 5. And I didn't jump from 1 to 5. I was doing something every day to get to this 5. This is the same, like brain is almost like a muscle. If you every day repeat to yourself and try to rationalize that this is just like a mass, you don't have to listen to everything that people say. Eventually you will gain the point when your brain will understand that that's just like a useless stream of information that you don't have to analyze.
Just every rep counts at the end of the day. An ongoing challenge at your work that keeps you up at night?
Yeah, probably. Always catching the market and understanding what to do next. What will be the next switch? How the industry will change and stuff like this. This is very organic because right now with AI, everything grows faster than ever. So that's something that comes to me like, okay, so maybe there will be this or maybe that, or how to pivot or how to change. But that's exciting. So that's a good part of the job.
I do have a question just outside of the rapid fire round, Margaret. Do people treat you differently now that you're at the position of authority, or kind of feel like that, hey, when I was a head of product, people treated me differently outside of the company, and now that I'm a CEO, people treat me differently? Have you seen if is there a difference?
Inside or outside?
Outside of the company, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is that because you have a position of authority, do you think?
Yeah,
Okay,
because
perfect.
people always tend to see you from the perspective of authority that is given.
Yeah. I think it's Anton that was speaking. He's the CEO of Lovable. And it was pretty interesting. He said my LinkedIn post got like 5 or 6 likes. And now that I am the CEO of Lovable, I'm suddenly a top voice on LinkedIn. And I get like hundreds of thousands of likes. And I think there is something in the fact that we look at a person of authority. Whatever they spew, it must be something very enlightening for the most part. Favorite restaurant, meal, or a spot in Poland?
So restaurant Młoda Polska in Wrocław.
Oh, wow. Well, we have our lunch after this, so this is fantastic. Młoda
Yeah.
Polska. What kind of food do they have?
Modern Polish cuisine, so pretty good one.
And what's your favorite dish there?
Probably either pierogi or some type of fish, but everything is amazing there.
Margaret, do you have a goal like that where you go, hey, if there is a restaurant, my favorite restaurant, they have a table reserved for me? There's a restaurant in Warsaw, and if you're an accomplished person, they name a table after you. Do you have anything like that, or like a quirk, or no? You're more like,
I have mountains that I want to climb, but not tables that I want to sit at.
Which mountain are you going to next?
So I'm going to Tatra Mountains, my favorite mountains, but not too high. And then I'm going to Alaska, so I'll probably hike something cool. Yeah.
Wow. Have you been to the States before?
And to the States, yes, but not to Alaska.
Okay, I think you're going to enjoy it quite a lot. That's fantastic. Yeah. One tool that you swear by other than Woodpecker?
I think one of the most powerful in the industry would be Clay. But from our niche, I would say Bouncer. We use them for email validation. Absolutely amazing software, great API, very reliable. So I highly recommend.
Okay, perfect. Margaret, like I said, this has been nothing but a fascinating conversations. Where can listeners find you? LinkedIn, website, community, any upcoming project launch or talk that you're excited about?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Margaret Sikora, and I'm also on TikTok and Instagram. So you can find me exactly by the same name.
Okay, TikTok. Do you like TikTok?
Neither bad or good.
Okay, cool.
It's a filler in time.
Okay, this is perfect. Well, Margaret, thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for letting us use the studio. This is perfect.
Absolutely.
So, guys, if you got value out of this, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.